Hey, good evening, man. Good evening. Good evening. I just want to welcome you guys back to the Conversation 98. And it's been a minute. It's been a minute. Took some time off, man. Glad to be back. Just wanted to jump on here. No, it's not the usual time, but hey, wanted to jump on here and have a quick conversation today. I just wanted to get back on here, man. I'm glad to be back on here. I know it's been a while, but truly excited about getting back into the swing of things. And sometimes you just have to take some time for yourself. Uh, but all in all, man, I'm truly excited. I'm excited about being back on here, and I'm excited about the conversation for tonight. Today, I say tonight. I'm so used to doing it in the afternoon, but the conversation today, I feel is going to be a real good conversation, a very needed conversation, and one that is say clothed in accountability. That's what I wanted. And for those, I know it's been a while, but make sure that you let me know if you want to interact. Just interact. You can comment, tune in or whatever. But hey, we're gonna get right into it because hey, that's what it is. But while I've been gone, just want to say very appreciative of just sometimes you just have to take some time. Sometimes you have to reset, and I appreciate God for that. That you can be committed to something, but sometimes you have to step away for a little bit so that that reset button can go, and you can get right into it. So what I want to do is just go ahead on and get started and talk about what we're going to talk about tonight. And tonight's conversation is be more willing to deal with your issues first before calling out others. And the reason why I feel like that is so important is most of the time, if we be honest with ourselves, it's so easy for us to find fault with other people do or things that other people do. And we really should be willing to deal with our issues first before calling out others, especially if we exhibit or we have some of those same behaviors. And what happens is this: we a lot of times we don't even realize how selfish we get to the space to where we'll feel that we have the right to call others out or how we're offended about what somebody else doing to us or how somebody else treating us, but we refuse to even acknowledge or address the same behavior that we're treating other people. That's why I said we got to be more willing to deal with our own issues before calling out others, because when we don't, that is 100% hypocrisy, straight hypocrisy. It is what it is, and you think about it, and we sit down and we think about it, and we really be honest about that, right? I'm not talking about a perfection thing. That's not what I'm talking about, you know. But the thing that come into play is you have to really be consistent. And what I mean by consistent is consistency of accountability. Consistency of accountability comes when you are self-aware enough to see yourself and check yourself about your behaviors, especially when it comes to other people. And I look at it from the capacity of, you can talk about it from a leadership capacity, you can talk about it from being in a relationship, you can talk about it from a parent or whatever. Where the consistency is where you at. A lot of times we feel like we are exempt and we are at this place of authority where our behaviors and how we want something is that, it is what it is. But then we'll treat people wrong and then be the first ones to cry wolf when somebody else treat us the very same way. And that's all because we don't take the time to look at ourselves in the mirror and be honest with ourselves about our behavior. That's why I said you got to be willing to deal with what your issues are or what you got going on before you call out others. Because when you don't do it, you'll be a hypocrite. I'm telling you. And what happens is people don't like to deal with it. People don't like to be around it. People don't like and you'll become people just don't want to be around it. And let's just be honest about it. That's a God honest truth. Like with that, let's be honest about it. And then let's say being more willing. And when I say be more willing is, the sad truth is a lot of us just aren't willing to acknowledge our wrong behavior or acknowledge the issues and the things that bother us. But we are the first one that's hyper alert to point it out in other people. Like you can't police somebody else when you're guilty of the same behavior. You got to realize and get to your why, get to the root of why your issues or how the issues bother you. And realize that when you don't deal with what your issues are, you usually become the very same thing that caused the issue to you just by being exposed to it and not addressing it. So that's why it's so important for us to sit down and address and deal with our issues first and be willing to acknowledge that, hey, look, this is me. This is my behavior in this situation. Because a lot of times when we get to that space of where we address our behaviors and we're willing to address our behaviors, what we'll find out is we'll find the key to us being healed and not being triggered by somebody else doing to us because we've done the work to heal ourselves. You know, and I've said this before, and I want really people to kind of think about this, but the reason why it's so important to heal and deal with and address issues that you have is because a wounded ear hears differently. A wounded heart feels differently. And when you walk around and you wounded and you try to cover up like you good, you will always be triggered by the root cause of it, or very protective about whatever issue or wounds that you have, and you will lash out to people who are really there to help you. You'll lash out to people who are there to not only help you, but they're there to help you overcome and help you grow and be a part of your journey, so for you to go to the next level. But you'll begin to attack them and feel like that they are a hindrance because you're trying to protect the very same thing that you should be willing to work and heal from. Like, you have to deal with those issues first, but especially before you try to call somebody else out. Because the worst thing that you can do, because most people are going to just tell you to kick rocks and you're going to lose all credibility. You're going to lose all credibility. And, you know, the other thing with it, and I want us to think about it, I know I will tell you, this is a good thing. You know, pride will have us in a space to where we are operating in stupidity. And we're operating in stupidity because pride will have us believing that we are good where we at, and we have the right to call other people out for exhibiting the same behavior or dealing with the same issues that we may have. And pride will convince us that that's okay. Pride will convince us like, hey, that's good, and boom, boom, that's the third. Like, no, that's not good. You know, that you have to deal with that. You have to address that. And when you don't address that, I'm telling you, you're going to be on the other side and people are going to look at you sideways and you're really going to lose all credibility, but you're going to continue to operate in your own little universe like everything is okay. And the people that connected to you may be miserable with their experience of you, all because you refuse to acknowledge your issues and deal with your issues first. I'm telling you, that's where it's at. And I've seen it happen. I've experienced it and even been guilty of it. You know, there's one thing people don't realize, and I really think they don't. And I think it's a hard thing for some people to realize, but there is something that needs to be thought about. But there is a freedom that is gained when you gain the courage to start dealing with and addressing your issues, instead of looking at other people and being so hypersensitive about what other people's actions are. You know, when we refuse to address and we try to suppress whatever our issues are, it makes us hypersensitive to other people's behavior. And we're quick to try to protect and call out other people for their behavior, but we do the exact same thing. And we then in turn, how can we call other people out for their exhibiting the same behavior we have, but then we refuse accountability on our part? That's hypocrisy. And that's something that we really need to think about, because there's power that's gained when you start to deal with and address you and look at you first. Because what happens is you'll begin to operate in an understanding and operate with more grace, especially when you're towards other people. You will. You will operate with more grace towards other people because you'll realize that we are all flawed. You're flawed, we're flawed. But you have to be careful. And I'm telling you, we're being more willing. You know, when we say being more willing, I think a lot of times, you know, it's, excuse me. Your willingness to address your issues says a lot about how mature you are as a person. And a lot of people lack emotional maturity to the space where they don't want to address whatever issues or whatever triggers. They feel like they got into a space to where they're comfortable with avoiding it, but they don't realize how much it impacts them and their relationships or their interaction with the people in their lives. To them, oh, I don't have to deal with that no more. So boom, it is what it is. But you came from it and it bothered you. So now you feel like you have the right to call everybody else out for exhibiting the same behavior, but you don't want to address your issues first. And we go into relationships like that, and then we will blame the other person, like inability to communicate. But your issues with communication is you got triggers that you don't want to deal with, and you got to deal with that and address it. It has nothing to do with the other person. You see how that is, and you're not like a lot of people, man. I would tell you, it's really is frustrating to a point, but many people have convinced themselves that they are good in areas where they're not. And in those same areas, they are hypersensitive and they look and they call other people out and they want to hold them accountable 1000% to them respecting that area. But then at the same point, or hold them accountable for their behavior, dealing with the same area where you are struggling with. And then at the same point, they don't want any accountability. They don't want anybody to hold them accountable until them addressing their behavior. And they will respond to court. They will respond in hostility. And then they will call you all different types of names. When these same people are quick to categorize somebody as a narcissist, or they can't communicate with you. And the reason why they do that is they will do any and everything to avoid being held accountable because they are afraid to address and face themselves. They are afraid to address and face themselves. And that's a sad thing. And that's a sad reality. But that's what happens with a lot of people. Like, there's nothing, and I want people to understand this. And I don't want people to take this, but there is nothing wrong with calling people out for their behaviors. There's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not advocating against that. What I am speaking about is the hypocrisy of it. If you are not willing to address and deal with your issues with the same level of energy that you have with calling people out for their behavior, their issues, you should be more willing to deal with your issues first before you call somebody else out. Like, if you're not willing to address and deal with your issues, why do you feel like somebody else got to respect your right for them or respect what you call them out for? And don't you realize that's hypocritical? Don't you realize that's hypocrisy 101? And how you package that up and how you look at that? That's something that you really have to sit down and you look at if you're not willing to address and deal with you. Period. And I know that it's not always an easy thing. You know, it's not always easy, man. And I want people to understand this. And this is something that you can think about, but it is not easy to really hold yourself accountable without practice. It's not a natural thing where, boom, I'm gonna just hold myself accountable. No, it takes some commitment and discipline to be and honesty to be honest, to tell yourself, hey, look, these are the issues. I got to deal with this. This is something that's wrong with me. And not look at it as a bad thing, but look at it as an opportunity for growth. And that's the problem. Many of us, we don't want to deal with our issues that we have because we look at it as opposition instead of looking at it as an opportunity for growth. Because if we approach it as opportunity for growth, what we'll realize is, okay, now this is an opportunity that I can improve. And you don't look at it as a negative. You begin to transition and look at it as a positive. And by looking at it as a positive, now you got the energy to start working towards change. And that change is what and that change manifests a better version of you. That's why it's so important to view it that way. That's why it's so important to view it that way. It's so important to view it that way. It's so important to see it that way. And I know that it can be difficult, but it is necessary. And the reason why I say it's necessary is because when you think about it, don't nobody want to deal with anybody who is not accountable. You know, and think about this, man. I want people to think about this. Nobody want to deal with anybody who refuses accountability. who refuse it. Like there's nothing more irritating, especially long term, than dealing with somebody who refuse to be accountable. Like really be accountable and not give excuses, not try to bring all this other stuff, not try to blame other people. And that's what it's like. So that's why I say you got to be more willing to deal with your issues first before calling out others. And the one thing that I've learned, the same people who love to quote unquote call out other people are the same ones who refuse accountability the most. They'll be more willing to call other people out in a way to try to make themselves feel better, but in turn will fight tooth and nails against being held accountable for them dealing with their own issues. And I'll tell you, those people are very difficult to be around. They're very difficult to live with, very difficult to be in relationship with, very difficult. And that's something that it's true. And you see it a lot. You see it a lot. Now I'm gonna say this: I've seen it a lot as far as with especially when you start talking about different people and leaders. But I've seen so many, especially quote unquote Christian leaders who like to get on and they like to come on and they like to talk about people as if the human experience, they're exempt from the human experience. And they talk from a high road and they talk down on people. Oh, lukewarm Christians, they are not this, and they calling people out. Even saw some saying they got a call out ministry. And I'm sitting here like, what about you dealing with your issues first? What about you talking about things from a real perspective? And because when we all realize that we're flawed, you don't have the space or the capacity to try to put other people down. You're presented. There's nothing wrong with calling people out for the fruit that they bear, but it's a different conversation. It's a conversation of, hey man, this is what I observe, instead of this is I'm in a position to judge you. And you see the difference in that? There's a difference in that approach. And that approach is received better if we go and we have a genuine heart towards that. That's nothing. I'm not talking about you not having a zeal for God or being on fire for God, but also too, I understand the holistic teachings of God. And Jesus met people where they were. He told people the truth where they at. When Jesus met with the woman at the well, he told her everything she had going on, but he packaged it in a way that she could receive it. And not only did she receive it, but she went and she told others because of the impact. He didn't get on there and try to do fire and brimstone to make himself better. He just said, he asked her a question. He just said, where's your husband? And she responded, he said, the man you with is not your husband. And what he did in that moment, he spoke to what her issue was. You see what Jesus spoke to what her issue was, but he didn't quote unquote call her out. Because that's the whole thing about it. And that's why I said, when we start dealing with, and this is what I want us to understand, when we really start dealing with our issues and identifying our issues, that will position us in a space to where we'll begin to be more relatable, especially when we go and talking about addressing other people's issues. It won't even be calling others out. It changed from I'm calling you out to, hey, brother, I'm identifying some things and I'm sharing with you some stuff that I see. It's the same thing, but it's a different approach when you experience it. If I never had a wound, had to deal with the pain of a wound, and I'm the one that providing that care to somebody, I am ignorant of what my touch may be based off of my experience. But if I've experienced it before, I'm considerate while I'm treating it. And that's the same thing. That's why you have to deal with your own issues, especially before you call other people out for the same thing that you deal with. Because that's hypocrisy. It is 100% hypocrisy if you choose not to address your issues before calling others out on theirs. And I got it. People got different issues, but you cannot not be willing to address yours. You can't be willing, and selfishness. This is the thing. Selfishness will convince you that your issues are more than somebody else's issue. When the same time your issue is the very same thing. And what I mean by that is your issue may be you you struggle with communication because you wasn't taught how to communicate, or an environment that you grew up in, you were shut down. So you do the exact same thing, but then you're mad at somebody else because they don't communicate with you and tell you how you feel, how they feel, or respect you and how you communicate. But then at the same point, you're disrespectful and you don't respect them. But selfishness will have you want them to respect you and cater to what you want without you even be willing to address yours. That's hypocrisy. And many people deal with that, and people don't want to have to deal with that because they don't want to have to eventually deal with you. And that will erode away that relationship big time. But man, I just wanted to just come on, man, really, and thank you guys, man. I'm coming back on more strong. I appreciate you. But we got to be more willing to deal with our issues first. Like, deal with yourself first. Deal with you first. Like, sit down and sit down and examine yourself. Many of us struggle because we are unwilling to take accountability and be self-aware and do a self-examination of who we are, like for real, and ask ourselves those questions, not from a selfish point of view, but asking ourselves questions like, hey, what is like, I remember I asked my daughter, I said, hey, how is it me being your dad? Like, how is that experience? Because I can only speak from my experience of what I'm thinking good, but how is that experience from the person that have to experience me from that capacity? How is it being my spouse? How is it being my sibling? How is it being my coworker? How is it being my supervisor? How is it being experiencing me? And if you're willing and honest, they will tell you things so you can deal with the reality of who you are. And once you do that, you realize you'll be a better version of yourself. You will be a better version of yourself. And man, I just wanted to come back on. We're going to kick this back on, get back started. Episode 213. I'm proud of it. Keep going. Make sure you guys go and you follow me on social media platforms, The Conversation 98 on YouTube. Please go and subscribe. I just hit 1K, 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. I'm on TikTok, The Conversation _98. Here on Facebook and Instagram, The Conversation 98. You guys have a great and wonderful week. God bless.